everybody, Primitive Mycology here again. Hey guys, I know I haven't made a video in a while, um, and it's not that I'm falling off. I've actually been taking lots and lots of video, but there's a ton of editing to do, and some of the projects I'm working on here lately that I really think are important to share with people um, are longer projects. Um, I the Pink Oyster project is, like only in its infancy. Um, I've got a couple of monos that I've confirmed that I will be uh, introducing to all of the phenotypes that I have selected and cloned from the multi-sport run. I was looking for some new genetics to then run a few monos with. Um, and some of the oddball peen creations I already have, I really want to expand upon. Um, Mainly because it's not a mushroom that people usually get too excited to breed, but it's a beautiful one. So, I've already taken that kind of to another level than I've seen anybody else do. And what I think I can do is far, far advanced of anything that I've shown just yet. Um, it's a longer project though, but I'm working on it. Also, I am I've started some longer extraction processes using some spagyric methods. I don't do like the spiritual part uh, that usually accompanies the literature for spagyrics, but the extraction methods are very effective. Um, and I think be very useful, to start utilizing every component of things. There's a lot of things that you don't get with just alcohol extraction or hot water. Um, Sometimes the crucifixion of an item uh, to reduce it down to carbon, and then the further crucifixion of the carbon until it turns into cell salts or reduced to just the cell salts is an exciting process. And those cell salts will allow you to bind other components to make plant stones. This is a much, much more in-depth process that I could go hours on. I've been doing these kind of extractions for quite some time. I do many other types of extractions. Um, I'm not, like a chemistry degree or anything, but uh, I've had the benefit of being able to learn on that side of things from some very, very intelligent people. And I would really like to share it. Uh, I've not heard anybody else doing what I've been doing for several years now. Um, I use a lot of conventional methods outside of this, but I think the reason a lot of people don't use spagyrics that often is one, because of the length of time it takes. Everybody wants everything right now, and they would rather have an inferior product than take the time and utilize all the components to really get everything out of that, out of the item. Um, and that's fine. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. That makes no difference to me, but I still want to share it. Anyways, um, Andrew from Mossy Creek had a live tonight, and I mentioned it to him, and he says, yes, he's familiar, but doesn't practice it, or doesn't put it into practice. And, he brought about the idea of documenting it and sharing it with everybody. So I'm going to start another couple projects because a few of mine are, a month in, and have already been through one stage of the process. So, why not start a couple more? I'll use them anyway. Anyhow, That's one other thing I'm working on. And then also, I'm able, I was able to go back after my surgery to my day job again, as well as, after work I get off and I come home and I do mushroom work. And the weekends, that's my time to work on my building. So, the day job funds the building. I don't want to be in debt, That's not a way to start a business. You don't start a business in debt, because then you're working in a deficit from the start. This guy's not filing bankruptcy, and ain't nobody ever taking it from me. It's mine. I own it. It'll stay that way. So, I need to make some more extra money to finish the building. It's costing, as any project does, it always costs more than what you expect. Even lots more than what you expect. That's just, I would rather, if I'm going to do this, I would rather really do this than have some half-ass contraption that isn't any better than the spare bedroom in the basement, So, anyways, another thing is, one of my other videos, I talked about, sorry, I'm about to hit my babe. I'm in my bedroom about to crash out here in a few minutes. One of my other videos, I talked about the nutritional profiles in media, okay? And I never went into why I'm interested in that. Okay, so when you think about like a baseline for media, LME, light malt extract, is pretty much the baseline. That's like the standard. I got away from light malt extract some time ago. I still have probably a couple pounds of it that I just don't use anymore, because there's nothing wrong with it. But I don't want to run into enzyme blindness where mycelium forgets how to eat anything but that, because I keep cultures for a long time. And that's not don't hear that and be like, oh God, I can't use it no more, because that's not at all what I'm saying. But also, I rotate media, okay? And when you start thinking about how you rotate your media, you got to think about what you're using when you rotate. Well, I use a variety of different things, but I don't want to use things that are not nutritious. If I'm, also I want to use things that are similar to the things that I'm going to be using as matrices, to grow on. So, similar to the composition of grains, similar nutrient profile to different grains that I use, similar nutrient profile to substrates that I use. That's wise, because the mycelium has already developed the enzymes to eat that, and therefore will perform well on those products. If you train mycelium to eat straw and then you throw it on master's mix, it's not going to fruit that well. It's not going to be that productive. Now you just wasted the material and your time, and now you have a deficit, and you're wondering, how am I going to grow an extra 50 pounds of mushrooms, or an extra 10 pounds of mushrooms that I've promised to someone, or that someone expects to get every week. You don't want to run into things like that. That's why you test things, number one. And one of the things that I like to look at is, when I switch to different nutrients, I want to know what their nutritional profile is. I want to know what they're really made of, like their constituents. And that's mainly because that tells me how I need to adjust the percentage of nutrition that I use in that media recipe. I try to stay around 2 to 2.5% nutrition in my media. And think about this, like oatmeal is way more nutritious than light malt extract. Grits are probably one of the most nutritious, things that you could use to make media that I know of, and then, there's just, I did another video on a whole list of things and their actual nutrient profiles, and that's just like the tip of the iceberg. What I'm saying here is if you use light malt extract as your baseline, 2% of that, and then you use 2% oatmeal or oatmeal dextrose blend or whatever, your nutrition is actually far higher. So now, I mean, you might as well take LME and put it on 3.5% nutrition, 3.5% plates or 3% plates. Other forms of nutrition, you might actually be comparable at like 4%. So I want to try to avoid that. And it's not like, oh God, we got to be perfect. No, it's not. We don't have to be perfect. It's nothing like that at all. It's just being aware of what you're using, and how much more nutritious or how much less nutritious, so you can adjust your medium. With oatmeal dextrose, and I often will add just like 0.0, like 0.1 or 0.2 grams of nutritional yeast, or 0.1 or 0.2 grams of peptone, just because it's like going to provide B vitamins, nitrogen, stuff like that. I don't want to like screw up the media recipe. If I wanted to use a little more of those, I would dial something else back, in order to use more of that. But my point is when using a better source of nutrition like that, I'm going to dial it back to like 2%, maybe even 1.8. And you're still going to be, a little more nutritious than what 2% LME would be. Potato dextrose, that's one that's actually rather nutritious, not like crazy or nothing, but that's another one that I would not go over 2%. Where if I were to actually use LME, or say like a combination of LME and brown rice flour, I'd probably go like 2.5% nutrition rate. It's just, you don't have to do this, but I like to be accurate. I like to take pride in what I do, and I like to know that's more of it than anything to me. Is I want to understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, and I want to understand what that nutrient source is doing for that mycelium. A lot of people grow just for fun, and it doesn't matter what their yield is. It does not matter to them if their culture performs. A lot of people say, oh, it's genetics. I'm sorry, but if you take Shaquille O'Neal and you deprive him of milk his entire life, he's no longer Shaquille O'Neal. He's some little scrawny guy that never excelled at anything. So I look at this the same way. If I have the best genetics in the world and I don't provide them with a good nutrition source or the proper training for the nutrition source, which is not like, please don't think it's like, oh, this is super important, because it's not. It's just the idea that I want to provide it, the mycelium, with the best environment that I can give it. And if I give it some great environment, but it's never eaten it before and it's not prepared for it, it's going to only perform half-assed. That's the end of it. Why do you think when you clone a mushroom, like say you run your multispore and then you clone a mushroom, and the multispore is always kind of like sporadic, and you might get a good flush, but it's still not going to be a canopy, and then you clone a mushroom from that and it produces a canopy, and you're like, why does it do that? Well, one, because multispore, there's many colonies that are going to compete for nutrition and compete for water, compete for air, compete for space. That's a part of it. Okay, but also that multispore, those new spores, they've never eaten what you're putting them on. Never. That's why often your second flush produces larger, better mushrooms, and usually a little better canopy, even with multispore. Think about this. Think about this. Think about what you're actually doing here. Let's break this down to mechanics, okay? Now you clone a mushroom, okay, and then you grow that out, and it produces a fucking canopy, and you're like, whoa. It performed completely differently. Why? Number one, that mycelium that you take from that mushroom that grew in that substrate and on that grain, okay, it now has completely developed the enzymes needed to break down those materials and use them appropriately. Okay? When it came from the original spore termination, it didn't have those enzymes yet. It had to develop them on the fly. And, I've heard people say, oh, I want them to be struggling. That's fine, because you do find new things. You might get mutations or different expressions of a phenotype. But if you want to grow something and do really well, often you will clone something and then you will really perform. Okay? I don't care how good your genetics are. I personally have never seen any ones or any multispore myself perform better than something I've cloned. You just don't. And there's reasons for that. So think about this. If you never take your mycelium off of LME ever, and it's from spore, okay, spore, and you grow it on popcorn, and then you send that to master's mix or quar or whatever, it will perform. Good genetics will perform. Okay? But I can take shit genetics, garbage genetics, run them through oatmeal, dextrose on agar, and then throw them on oats, colonize rather well, digest them well, and then throw that into master's mix and rock out like I have the best genetics in the world. And again, there's a reason for that. It's all about environment and what is acceptable in the range of what it can eat. So that's part of the reason why your clones perform so well, is because they're ready for that. They've all that mycelium, that genetic has already been on that, already fruited on that. That's why, like, when cloning, you wouldn't call it a filial generation. That's with spores. But like, say that you grow out, clone, then you grow that out and you pick the best, the prettiest, biggest mushroom of that, and you clone that one too, and then run that. Each time it's going to get smoother, it's going to get better, it's going to be more uniform, it's going to fruit better. Okay, you're probably going to get better yields, and that's because it's not at all a filial generation, but the generations of that work right there. You have prepared that and isolated and selected for something that performs well on that. Now you take that and throw it on straw, it's going to do for shit. End of story. Now you train it for straw and it performs on that. I've actually managed to get several cultures that aren't supposed to grow on straw at all to do really well, just with a little work. Is it paramount that you do this? No. But here's another thing to think about. When you buy a culture from any reputable source, okay, you can guarantee that came from spore at some point, and then that was grown on grain, and then on master's mix, and then cloned, selected for. That, from the beginning has developed the enzymes to do that, okay? And then they've probably left it on LME or PDA for next to forever, and usually when you first get it, it does okay. Me, I'll run it through, a different plate of my own, and it'll perform better than on my grain and my substrate than it did off their original plate. And it's not because they sold me a bad plate. It's nothing like that. It's just environmental. It's like life sequence, like the Shaquille O'Neal thing. Me, I've done electrical work, welded, done mechanical work, PLC programming my whole life. If you put me, okay, if you put me in a factory trying to make food or packaging or something that I find not appealing, that I don't care about, how well am I going to do? I'm not. Okay? And then you can throw me into any any industrial building on the planet and say, hey, that machine's broke down, fix it. And I can troubleshoot every inch of that machine, regardless if I've never seen it before, and repair it, make it work again. Having no idea about that machine, never even looked at it, never seen it run anything. With a little bit of time, I can quickly figure it out and make it work. That's because that's what I'm conditioned for. Everything in life works that way. It's mechanics, you know. People, you could call it biology, or you could call it, anything you want. Everything in the world breaks down to mechanics, body mechanics, the mechanics of biology, how this works with this organism, how this works with that machine, how this works with that car, how this works with this, camera, how mushrooms grow, what kind of environment. I mean, everything breaks down to mechanics. So if you simplify things like that, you can really, really dial in a process. And I've got like the mentality of, okay, I'm doing it well. Why am I not doing it better than everyone else? So then you hit the books, then you start experimenting, then you start studying and actually learning something about the organism you're working with. Kind of like with compost lovers. I understand a lot more about, things like that than I would ever talk about, or I would ever agree to. Won't say why, but it's mechanics, you know, as well as observation and things like that. Like that's not my interest, but everyone eventually, looks into that. It's just, I mean, it is. And with anything I do, I'm going to experiment. There's so many ways to do things. Um, you know, I am not into cubensis at all. Could care less about it. I can find them in the wild. If I ever wanted them, I would know right where to find them, in nature. Um, and that's because I forage and, I enjoy identification. There's no need for me to take any risk. Don't care about that. Um, Not really interested in eating them either. And that's cool. That doesn't matter. Lots of people are, and that's fantastic. If that makes you happy, if it's therapeutic for you, by all means do it. So much better than many of the alternatives. Um, that's definitely not something that'll, necessarily hurt you. But I don't like that topic. Um, I think that should be more like a personal thing. Um, but anyways, uh, mycology in general, anything to do with mycology. Anyways, though, I want to, get off here. I was just letting you guys know that I'm working on some projects that I'm in the midst of. There's a lot of editing to do, short amounts of time, and a couple of them aren't completely finished, but I'm working on it. Some reading, though, and thinking about the nutritional profiles of things. I gave you all some of the information that I had in a previous video, and then Ed Grand mentioned something to me that I had actually forgotten about. He was talking, he mentioned the mushroom cultivator, which I have that, and Gourmet and Medicinal Mushrooms by Paul Stamets. They do have an index in them, both of them do, that goes into some nutritional profiles and different things that can be used. And that got me thinking. I was reading through that a little bit, and I have another book that you wouldn't, really think for about mushroom nutrition, but this. It's Gene Carper's Total Nutrition Guide, complete and up to date, based on U.S. Department of Agriculture's new scientific analysis of the vital nutrients in more than 2,500 foods. A couple flip throughs in this, and you would be nearly mind blown the amount of things that contain what we need to grow fungus and grow it well. Actually gave me some rather interesting new ideas that I'm going to be starting a little couple side projects with and see how it works. I'm going to start with media first. That's always the easiest. It's, then you don't waste a bunch of time, test things and, with media, and then move on to grains mixed, with different organic, components, and then maybe even see if if I can get something trained to grow on some really unconventional organic stuff. So it's just a project. It's not like, oh, I'm better than you, or oh, I know this and you don't. No, I don't. I have a lot of experience in this. Been doing this a while, substantially longer than most of the people that I know and associate with. And I just like to know things. I like to know options that I have. I like to know what a culture is capable of. It's just, it's a passion. It's like obsession, I'd rather obsess over this than be, at some, crack house or something, you know what I mean? Like, why not put my time and energy and intelligence into something good? Does everybody have to care? Absolutely not. I don't know if I really care that much. I'm gonna find out though. This is gonna be fun. These are the things that I do that keep me growing. I could cut back the the little bit of production I do. In production, I don't mean like little hobby thing. I mean like production. I could cut it way, way, way back, make a few bucks, and just work a 9 to 5 and be happy. Have all my own stuff, and making extracts and messing around, and not do none of this. Get bored eventually, or build a business and then burn out and be like, oh man, oh God, I've worked up to 500 pounds a week and I just don't want to do this anymore. What the hell am I going to do? You can't do that to yourself. Burnout is serious. You got to do things to avoid that. So do things you enjoy. If someone tells you your experiment's stupid, don't talk to that person anymore. If you ask someone a question and they say, sorry, join my group and I'll talk to you, that's when you immediately disregard anything else they ever say to you. Because if that's the only context that they will speak to you under, they don't want to be friends with you. They don't want, they're just looking for an opportunity to sell you something or to get you to pay to be in a group where they can give you some basic beginner information and little tidbits of intelligent things and kind of make you kiss their ass or be their groupie. Nope. Not this guy. Nope. I carved my own path and I'm open to talk to anyone. But I'm a bit old-fashioned. I'm a fan of email. Simple as email. YouTube, talk to you on there. Email can move on to, I have a landline, wouldn't give you my cell phone number, but that's just because, I can't have calls like that when I'm in the middle of other things. Somebody that refuses to talk to me unless I pay them money, don't want to talk to you, man. You're trying to get over on me. Not happening. There's some people I would really like to talk to, but they're probably weary of email. I don't know why. Makes zero sense to me. I'm weary of Facebook. I'm weary of Instagram because they're censored and they're unpredictable, that they might just cut your account, and then you lose all your contacts, and they're monitored. I mean, come on, man. I'm not interested in that. There's just too many things that, I got to have some principle in my life, and I just stand against those things. If I could, I would stand against email too and be like, hey, landline advertisement, but you can't do that. You just can't. So that's something I look at too. legitimacy. Here's an analogy from a friend of mine. He owns a construction business, and he was talking one time because I've always done side jobs and mechanics and welding, and might go fix a machine for somebody, go fix a piece of equipment for him. And he would always tell me, when somebody calls you, think about this. He says, think about if it was you. Okay, if you had two contractors come and bid a job to do your roof, to roof your house, he says, and one guy gave you a fairly low price, decent price, and he had a lot to say, a lot to talk about. And you said, okay, cool. When can you start? And he says, I can start tomorrow. And you think, oh, that's great. I'm going to get it done. He says, but you give it a little time. And then you go on, and the next guy, he looks at it. He gives you the real price, and he says, that's what it is. There's not a negotiation. But, I'm licensed, I'm bonded, I'm insured, I have, a large business to run. That's the price. That's the price for me to pay employees a fair wage so they do nice work, blah, 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 and on, okay? And then you say, okay, I'm going to go with you. When can you start? And he says, well, hold on. And he goes to his truck and he comes back and he says, well, I can start next month. And you're like, next month? What? Well, that's the point you have to consider. That guy that can start next month, he's not desperate for work. Okay? He doesn't care if he gets your job or not because he has a ton of other work. And the reason why is because he's legitimate. He does good quality work, good materials. The guy that can start tomorrow, he's desperate. He's not busy because he's not doing quality work. Okay? So my buddy Tom would always tell me, when you go bid a job for somebody, you don't ever agree to start that weekend. Because anybody that's been in business, any farmer, any trucking company, anybody, they're going to know this same thing. He says it's just, anybody that has been in business long enough and is serious, legitimate, that's going to be their first thought is if this guy can start tomorrow, he doesn't have any work. We probably don't want to have a guy here that can't get any work. And they're going to go with the other guy. Well, I look at the same exact thing. If I can't email you and you get back to me a day later, a week later, a month later, you got too much time on your hands. The odds of legitimacy are probably next to zero for me, as far as I'm concerned. Things that I look for in a lot of the conversations I have, are mostly with companies much, much larger than me, and I'm just coming into my legitimacy. Been doing this a long time, but never wanted to make it a career until here the last year. Yeah, and I think, okay, when I call somebody, when I have a serious question about scaling up, about like serious growing, like where it comes down to like the wire, where all your shit really gets exposed, when you scale up. That's just the way of it. All the little shits that are going on that you're getting by with, and you probably don't even know are going on, growing on a small scale, when you scale up, completely change. The guy I'm calling, the guy I'm talking to, I'm calling him. I'm getting on the phone and calling a company and talking to a guy that I've been talking to for quite some time that's actually helped me get to the point I am now. There's a handful of them. I can email them, I can call them any day, Monday through Friday. And they're going to give me legitimate answers. Or if it's above, the current relationship I have with them, they may say, hey, if you want me to sort out the routing of your HVAC, I'm going to need a video walkthrough, and it's going to be a consultation. It's going to cost a few bucks. But I know it's legit, That's who I'm going to talk to. There's not a group out there that I can contact like that. So as soon as you say, hey, if you come to my group, I'll talk to you, that's when I don't talk to you. No offense to anybody, but to me, it's a business legitimacy thing. I'm not bashful to give out my email. I will give you my landline number. Don't care. What harm could you do me from that? You can't. But it's the idea that, as an appearance of, legitimacy of, I'm serious, like, let's have this conversation, or, hey, I really need this information. Those are the things I'm looking at. Those are the things I would pay for. Wouldn't even bat an eye at paying for it if I know it's coming from the right place, from the right person. Some information is just not attainable, when it comes to production. As far as growing and, culture work and, troubleshooting, none of that costs. You should not be paying for any of that. Scaling up, that's sometimes what costs. So it's just something to think about. I've been hearing several podcasts over the last week and a half that have really, really been pushing support the community, support the community, support the community. Ask yourself, does that community support you? What are they doing for you? They want you to do for them. Should be an equal exchange. Right? Or is it just a one-way street? And if it's a one-way street, you ain't using me. I'm good. I don't need that. My knowledge has mainly come from literature. I mean, I have never had a mentor until like the last year. I've been doing this 6 years. Never have I ever had anybody to teach me. Never been in a group. Nothing. And I'm growing species that most people couldn't if they wanted to. And it's not because they're not capable. It's just because people don't share that kind of information. To learn to grow one species, I don't care how many variants, whether it's Hericium or shiitake or oyster mushrooms or cubensis or whatever, to learn to grow one species is really easy. Then it's just mechanics. Then it's just repeat. If you can grow golden oysters, you can grow pinks. You can grow palminarius, you can grow columbinus, you can grow orangeii, you can grow them all. If you can grow one, you can grow them all within that species. And then you start looking into, okay, well, now I can grow 5 different species and grow them perfectly. I know every requirement they have. I know the temperatures they need, because you start getting into lesser known gourmets, and then stuff like maitake that has a maturity phase, and you're looking at 120 days, and there's, many steps you take before you even open the damn bag. It's complicated. That's why not everyone's doing it, period. Shiitake, once you start learning, okay, here's, I think it's 3782, that takes 4 months, roughly 4 months to mature. Or real close when you consider your grain spawn time. 4 months, yes, you could probably fruit it in a month, but it'll fruit like shit, and they will probably mutate, and I've never gotten a second flush jumping the gun like that on them. It just ain't happening. 3790, you're looking at like roughly 3 months, okay? There's distinct phases in, colonization and then into maturity as it rests. before you fruit it. There's signals you learn to pick up on. Okay, it's easy to do that with one bag. Now do it with 50 or 100. You know, and then have 5 other species going on that you have to take care of and know and understand. You get into chestnut, they have a maturity phase. Nameko, reishi, there's several ways to grow them. I can grow reishi 8-10 inches tall in 45 days. And, up until the last 6 months, everybody told me that it's a 6-month deal, 4 to 6 months. And they're growing these little, like, kind of like scrawny, spindly, reishi. And I'm like, it has to be better than this. Well, I figured out how to do this in 45 days, and they're like, jumbo. I mean, that's what you get from like real experience. I can do this with a handful of species, and I'm a joke compared to some of the people that I talk to. Now that I have a few people that I've met that, have respect me enough now because of the ability I have that they'll even deal with me in the first place. You get into a whole nother world. And, when somebody tries to sell you on something, you probably don't need it. The guys that are going to really help you, you're going to end up seeking them out. And it's not going to be, give me money to talk to me, or if you don't buy my product, I don't have nothing to say to you. It will never be that. No. It don't work like that. So think about that, people. You should support your community. If you have people that do right by you, you should do right by them. But that doesn't mean you kiss their ass. That doesn't mean that you spend thousands of dollars for 10 minutes worth of information. You don't do that. Relationships should be mutual. That's how business works. That's good business. And you can do shit business if you want. Makes me no difference. I would just, I've noticed a lot lately where I see people trying to sell something. And, there's some people I really respect. Ed Grand, total respect for you, man. You've really earned more, you've more than earned your place, not just in like the YouTube community and the world, man. You're the real deal. I really got a lot of respect for you. Andrew Reed, Eric Lohman. These are some people that are really, really intelligent. And there's a handful of other people that I think really highly of. But like these are the kind of things to think of. If it's not someone at the level of, like the kind of level that I just, the people I just spoke of, I would never pay them a penny for any amount of information, because they probably don't really know. A lot of these guys that are trying to sell you into their group, where they charge you a little money each week or each month, or, asking for your donations, or trying to sell you shit cultures. They're probably only growing a few tubs a week in a closet or something. Don't do that to yourself. That's the kind of things that discourage people from mycology. Getting shit information and being taught completely wrong is why people quit. Without a question, that's why people quit. Don't do that to yourself. Find the right people, guys. And just think about what you're doing. Because failure will often push many people away. And, people like Ed, Andrew, I'm not yet at the level of them guys, but someday I hope to be. We want to see you succeed. I can help a lot, but there'll be a point where I may not be able to help no more. When you think about getting up to like 500, 1,000 pounds a week, I couldn't help you plan your entire operation. I could still help you troubleshoot because I've grown in numerous amounts, in numerous different species. And I constantly experiment. So I do know a little bit, but I'm a nobody. for now. But anyways, just please think about those things. Don't let assholes discourage you, and don't be suckered. Don't get used, guys. Anyways, have a great night.